film critic in their magazine, and it's my great pleasure to introduce the writer and director of the film, Halina Reijn. And star Nicole Kidman. Halina, you have brought up the 90s erotic thriller as one of the touchstones of this movie. Was that where this film began? What was it about that sort of movie that was interesting to you?
To me, when I saw those movies when I was younger, I always felt that I was a little bit less alone in my sort of dark, hidden, embarrassing fantasies. So those movies meant a lot to me, and also just very entertaining. But then later on in life, when I became a director and I was thinking of what I wanted to do, I thought it would be really fun to do it, but then completely from the female gaze and sort of like be in conversation with those movies, but also trying to, you know, make fun of them a little bit and then give it a twist in, you know, our gaze.
It's funny, a lot of the most famous of those movies were, the directors were actually not American, but there was this maybe very American need to be like, our very sexy movie has to end with like a terrible moral comeuppance. Do you see this movie as kind of your way of exploring, say, like American sexual mores, but also workplace mores?
Yes, definitely, and not only American. I mean, I'm from the Netherlands, but I feel very much connected to what it is, and it's very personal to me. But yes, I think the difference, if you look at it generally, is maybe that in the end nobody dies or nobody gets punished. But we kind of want to say that we're all humans, you know, and all the characters are layered and good and evil and angels and devils.
So when you were writing Romy, was Nicole always on your mind for playing the character?
Yes, definitely. I think Nicole was on my mind even before I was a writer or a director or whatever. Nicole has always been on my mind.
Stop.
No, she was, as an actress, I was always, of course, incredibly inspired by her, and I always love when she says, because everybody always calls you courageous, and I think you're very courageous and fearless, but then she says, no, but I am just as afraid as everybody else. I just dare to go into these spaces that are, you know, frightening and embarrassing, and as an actress, that's of course something that you try to channel when you stand in the wings and you're nervous, you don't want to go on stage. I was always thinking of her way before I would ever think that I would ever meet her in my life.
Well, Nicole,
I don't speak.
Well, what was on your mind when you were first approached with this project? I mean, you are someone I think of as like very fearless and like willing to take risks in your work, but there is also really nothing like Babygirl being made right now.
I mean, I don't see it as a risk. I see it as an opportunity. So for me, it's wow. I read the script and I knew the title and I was like, right, that's my film. I don't care what it's about, but I want to make it. So we were circling each other. We were having Halina come in and written something for us at Blossom. And so and I knew of her work from instinct onward as I sort of find people that I'm fascinated by, and I was fascinated by her. And then we would talk on the phone with other things, the things that were going on in our lives, and we'd sort of cross our paths. And then Babygirl arrived, and I sat down and read it, and I was just like, oh, finally. It was sort of like, if I don't play this, if I don't get to make this, it will be so devastatingly painful, because it was like I read it and I got it, I understood it. We talked on the phone for almost an hour and a half, 2 hours, just about everything, and dissected it and went through it, and just the themes of it and everything it was about. I was like, no, I understand, I know this, and I want to. So to be then, as an actor, you're in a position always where you have to be chosen. You don't actually, we're not the writer-director. We are the person that a director goes, I want you. So we're not in a position of control so much, and I think people think we are, but we're not, you know. So when something comes your way, particularly at this age, where you go, oh, what? It was just a gift. And then it's like, let's go on the journey. So there's no bravery involved. It's more just how do we really fully realize it with all the constraints that come with filmmaking and the financial part of it, everything. So, and getting the right actors. And so that's how I always see something that's really, really good.
And I think also what makes her very special, to continue my love monologue about her, is that I made a very small movie, Instinct, that never came out here, that is really hard to find. Try it, I don't think anybody can find it really good. And she knows how to find these things, and she's specifically looking for younger or begin. I mean, I wasn't young, but I was a beginner and a woman, that you gave me this chance is, of course, that is everything, and that you have that mentality in life. I think that is just very inspiring.
This film is so much about Romy's journey to getting comfortable with admitting what she wants from intimacy, you know, to other people, but also to herself. And she's very vulnerable.
Discovering as well, because it's almost like not knowing.
Right.
I think that for me, a lot of the time in my life, it is a discovery. And as I go along, I go, I didn't even actually know that about myself. I didn't know that's what I wanted, that's what I needed, that's what I was seeking. And I think that sort of winding path of discovery, and then, because people say, oh, well, what do you really want? Bare your soul, and you're, particularly when you're in a relationship and you're like, I'm not sure, and it changes. And that's what I love about the way Halina wrote it, was it was like a discovery for Romy through the whole film. And it's a crisis.
Which language?
English. But we can speak Italian. That's the only other language I speak, if you're interested.
Well, so much what I love about the relationship your character has with Harris Dickinson's is that they are figuring things out as they go along, and sometimes it's like doesn't quite go smoothly, and sometimes, you know, it's like very sexy, but like, was it important in kind of building that dynamic to leave room for it to be like a little awkward or a little funny sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I read the script and I thought it was so funny. So that's me. But I also was turned on by it. I was also sort of hypnotized, and I just loved that I never knew what was going to happen next. And even though it's in the genre of those 90s thrillers, it doesn't take those turns, and nothing is what it seems as it unravels. And I also loved, because she's such a great actress, so I have to say, working with a woman who can act is fabulous. It's so good, because I'd be like, Halina, do it for me. Do it. How did you hear it? Tell me. And then, because she's, you know, wants to explore it, she allows you to then take it and make it your own. She's not like, I need you to say it rhythmically this way or anything like that. But she can give you a grasp of what the structure is, or what staging is, or her ideas of it, because she's written it. She knows it. It's deeply personal. And so you have this extraordinary sort of guide that will then go, but now it's yours. Go play. And we had a fantastic cinematographer as well, who, when you work with a great cinematographer, they will feel you. They will dance with you. They will be a part of you. And the other thing I love is that when they're working together, because they've worked together before, so Jasper and Halina are very close, but they also roll the camera when you don't know, which is fantastic. Just saying, any directors out there, it's a really great thing, because so much of what you're trying to capture is the when you're not acting. So suddenly they'd be rolling and they would just capture it, and I stay in character so that that will be captured at any time. You know, so it's just it's like you're on stage, but you're on stage for months. Because you can't break. You have to, and unfortunately, when you have a family at home and everything, there has to be a sort of an agreement that's made where you go, I'm now going to go into this and I'm asking your permission to let me go. And I have now teenage children who sort of understand it, and a husband who's also an artist. So there's a releasing of you into your artistic life, and then you come back to your home and your real life. But there is a sort of a letting go that's required. Everyone's looking like, what?
Well, Halina, you have mentioned in interviews what you called the orgasm divide, right? The orgasm imbalance in Hollywood with regard to depictions of women's pleasure. I was wondering if you could speak about that a bit and what your approach was in kind of wanting to stage the sex scenes.
The orgasm gap, yeah, it's huge. I think women don't talk about it with each other. I don't talk about it with my girlfriends only now because I have the movie as a tool and I'm not so embarrassed and I can show the movie and then talk about it, like I'm doing right now. But I think a lot of women, and I love what you were talking about just now, they don't even know what they want, because basically we got the right to vote last week. So we're figuring out who are we, what do our bodies want, what can our bodies do, is it embarrassing if it takes too long. These are also scientifically proven facts, that there is an orgasm gap, that women always think it takes too long. And I think this, and of course the sexuality is in the movie and we're enjoying it, but it's only a metaphor for something deeper, which is an existential sort of crisis that humans, men, women, giraffes, everybody can be in. Just an existential crisis of who am I and what do I want? And sexuality is of course only part of that, but in our movie a big metaphor where you see a woman where you think, well, she's in a marriage and she's married to Antonio Banderas, so what can be wrong? And there's nothing wrong, and yet she, not because of him, that's something that we wanted to make very clear, but because she's not allowing herself to actually ask for what she wants, or maybe even admit to herself what she wants. And then we see her go on this journey where she slowly finds that. Even in her age, you would think, well, she should figure it out. She should have had figured it out. And I am very moved by that scene, by their performances in that scene, in that red hotel room, where she has that climax with him, and whether we think that it's the first time maybe that she goes through that with a man, or maybe not, maybe, we don't know that, but it is a very profound experience. And when I was writing and I started to ask a lot of women these questions, I was very deeply disturbed, to be honest, by how much women do not have orgasms with men or partners, but with themselves they do, luckily. But it is still something that we need to address, and I think this movie is one of the things that we can maybe do. That silence.
No, that was fun.
Because it's scary to talk about it
For all of us, so
it's scary to do it.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I wanted to ask you about that because, there is a lot of vulnerability. You're both in the sex scenes, but also I think the scenes of the father figure scene is emblazoned in my mind forever, I think, but also the milk, there are these moments that are very just so personal to these two people and the thing they're figuring out. Was there a particular one that you feel was either the biggest challenge or just the one that seems most memorable for you and in terms of filming it?
What goes in the film and what doesn't go in the film is ultimately decided in the editing room. So there's an enormous amount that you've done that penetrates the film, whether it's actually in the film ultimately or not. So there was so much in terms of exposure and just being with Harris and Antonio and Halina, and it really was a foursome because we were all in it together, and there was an enormous amount of sharing and trust, and then frustration. It's like, don't touch me. There was times when we were shooting where I was like, I don't want to orgasm anymore. Don't come near me. I hate doing this. I don't care if I never am touched again in my life. I'm over it. It was so present all the time for me that it was almost like a burnout. But what's fantastic is that with that came an enormous amount of relief. And I think the intimacy that you create together in a very safe place, and this is where I don't think I could have done it with a man. I actually think the only way I could do this was with her, because the two of us would sit and talk, and it was like really, really talking about things that, and we talked about so many things and still do, that is so secretive and vulnerable, and but it's safe, and with that comes growth. And so hopefully this film releases something in some people at some time, or at least starts questions, because there aren't really answers, as we all know. There's really only questions, and answers change, and you land on something and go, oh, now I understand, and then you don't. So it's always moving, but I love the movement of it. But there was nothing that was too hard. There was just days when it was too much, if that makes sense. My favorite day was the rave, because I got to go to a rave. And it really was that. And we played loud music, and I got to just go wild. And at that point in the film, when we were doing it, it was just so needed, that feeling of just, whoosh, you know, full release. So, but it's also hopefully hopefully there's enormous depth to it, but it's funny and entertaining. It's meant to be entertaining.
Absolutely.
It's not meant to be punishing, or, even though some people have said to me, who I won't name, have said it's the most disturbing film they've ever seen, which I don't understand. But maybe there's people here that find it disturbing. I don't find it disturbing at all.
No, and I think what we were talking about earlier, this kind of like vulnerability that they both have in those scenes, Harris and Nicole, where they go almost in and out of the things that they're exploring. I think that's so human, and we really wanted to address that we didn't want to make this glamorous picture of like knowing how to play a dominant sub. We are all just beings that are sort of trying, and we're all embarrassed. And I think from that comes a lot of humor and hopefully recognition. But that was incredibly important to us, that it was also light and fun, and not only heavy and existential.
That is unfortunately all the time we have. But can I please get another round of applause?
Thanks for coming.